Hello and welcome to my build update for Commander Moto Charge Calling. On day 1, I was perfectly able to farm Time Mark 7, including Time Mark 7 too. Time Mark 8 was okay, but definitely not the fastest. Since then, I've made quite a few upgrades, dropped the set bonus, put on a lot of real gear. Now I can speed farm Time Mark 8-1, I can do Time Mark 8-2 pretty comfortably, and Time Mark 8-4 is technically doable but not very efficient, as things get really tanky and hard to kill at that point. Though I have done a bunch of side content, including Mistville, Traveler 8, all that fun stuff. So if you're looking for a relatively low investment build, this could very well be your final character. I've spent up to date somewhere around 2,500 Flame Elementium, though of course prices are always subject to change. That said, personally, I do not consider this to be a fully min-maxed build. That said, if you want to know what I end up doing, how I end up min-maxing the character, I'm definitely going to take this one further, invest some more Flame Elementium as I'm able to farm it. So do be sure to get subscribed, leave a like while you're down there, and if you want a very basic farming strategy to get started, maybe check out my farming strategy video that came out very recently. It'll be linked up in the card down below. You can watch it after this. Starting with the skills, which overall will still look pretty familiar, but there are a few key changes. The first of which is, on my Summon Grim Phantom, I'm using completely different supports. I ended up going with Crit Strike Damage Increase, Precision Strike, Mech Mod, Steamroll, and Mark. The reason for these two is, turns out, if you hit a bunch and you're primarily lightning damage, your shock's relevant. So I didn't want to lock myself out of that, and Crit Strike Damage Increase has a large multi. But in terms of Mark, it was either Mark or increased crit chance, but I'd need another way to mark stuff so that they take 40% increased critical strike damage, as I'm critting a lot. I didn't have that alternate set of Mark, so Mark support. From there, Frost Shield, nice defensive. That way I have about 40% reduced Fizz and Fire taken. Of course, Lightning, Erosion, those are still a bit of a problem, but this did feel like one of the better defensive skill options, with the alternative coming over here and trying to find it in the list which you can't type in. By the way, why is there no search bar? There we go. So, the alternative being Delayed Pain for the injury buffer. Going back and forth, right now I like Frost Shield better, might swap again to Delayed Pain later. For movement, it's Blink Time, because as part of going for real damage, I had to swap to Blink. Compound Source with Activation Medium Life, going back and forth on this. For a little bit of extra damage, you can absolutely run Electrocute, but if you want extra defenses, Compound Source is the way to go. Damages felt fine, so that's what I went with. Then of course, Elemental Shock is my damage skill. For auras, Weapon Amp, Rejuve, Electric Conversion, Ellie Res. Ellie Res is just because I've been too lazy to fix my res, and the rest, these are just the ones that gave the highest number. You might also notice that I now have Soul Candles. I have this one with +2 minion skill level and minion damage. It's quite nice. It was unfortunately rather expensive, and then this one with Harden that was surprisingly cheap given that it had Curse Effect. That does nothing for me now because I immediately swapped off my Curse. But hey, it was cheap, so I can't complain too much. Now in terms of talents, almost identical to before, but I'm going back and forth on Isomorphic Arms. I've used it, and I've also swapped back to Mighty Guard, and I've used it. Seems like I'm right at that cusp where I have so many active skill levels that I probably should be using Isomorphic Arms, but it's close. It's not a huge difference either way. Then in the other trees, still going for the defensive stuff. Yeah, you can use Burning Aggression, I guess, but overall the 20% chance to ignore armor, not super important. Command, not super important. It's nice, it's a little damage. I'd much rather have the defenses and keep moving. And then Steel Vanguard remains the penultimate defensive trait. Now for Statue of a New God, I'm doing something a little different, and it's a little weird. Don't know if I'll keep it. So far it's been working though. So first up, I got a nice defensive slate here, transferring damage taken to a minion. Next up, I'm doing something funky. I'm adding base ailment damage to minions. Then I'm giving minions a chance to inflict trauma. This is very important. This one's just for damage. Because I'm using Open Wounds, which says 125% critical strike damage against traumatized enemies. And minions critical strike damage against traumatized enemies. Which, guess what? My minions can inflict trauma, and it has base damage. So yes, I now traumatize enemies for extra damage. I'll probably keep this set up until I go for new God Slates, assuming I go for them because right now they are quite expensive. Now, when it comes to hero items, I happen to get this. It really helps to cap out my crit. I'm rather crit starved, so this overloading core's best in slot for me for a moment. Still going for minion life, transferring player life. I don't think these are optimal at all, but this is what I've got so far. Have mostly invested my currency in other places, such as Dominion of the Iron Pack. Yeah, I have a full version now. This is where most of my money went, as it cost like 1,500 FE. Actually, I think it was more like 1,350, but hey, who's counting the other 150 at that point? And yes, most of the rest of my money went into gear, as you can tell from the fact that a lot of these things are half finish. Alright, so my gear has changed quite a bit. First up, I'm using this very nicely corroded Fiend Crown. Admittedly, I like the int, I like the max life, I like the minion max life, I like everything that's on here. I just think that the priorities are a little bit off. I should probably have T1 life, T2 int, and then the T4 max minion life, or possibly minion double damage. That could actually be a better stat, even if it is harder to roll. That said, I have this base. I'm planning to aptitude transfer other stats onto it. I just need more 3LA Fiend Crowns, which they haven't been dropping that much recently. I'm sure I'll find them soon. Another very big upgrade, Warden's Breastpin. I got very lucky with this. I dropped it off of one of my early kills in Time Mark 8, and then I corroded it, and I happened to get +3 main skill level. Your minions cannot deal physical damage. So I'm going to be using this for quite a while. This way, because I'm fully elemental, I get a ton of main skill level, and of course, my crit rating and crit damage apply to minions. Only 79%, not ideal. I'll need to get a better one long term, probably by double corroding a whole bunch, but that's a problem for future me who actually has money to solve it. Then Winter of Origin, really, really good minion belt. Probably need to try to corrode this, to be honest, maybe even double corrode it. But basically, Winter of Origin makes your focus blessings do minion stuff, and it applies a whole bunch of damage. So that's why I'm using it. And I got things like Aversion Res, Fire Res, Life. Most of my legendaries are Fix Res and Life, because that's what I've been struggling with. My damage has been fine, but survivability is what I run into as I keep pushing into higher and higher content. Of course, because I dropped my set bonus, I needed a ring. Ended up crafting this. I'd say it's pretty okay. The actual base, the suffixes, incredible. The prefixes, not so much, and it's not level 86, so it doesn't have a lot of long-term potential. So I basically just kept spamming until I got T2 life, which I consider to be acceptable. It's about the highest you're going to get on an item like this. Hit a random minion damage, threw some int on for good measure, as that's multiplicative damage. Then there's my heavyware, which I'm pretty sure is the same one from the last video. But I did get this one recently, so I'm hoping to ultimately replace it with one that has a few better mods. I just need to decide on some of the rest of my gear so that I know if I either upgrade these all the way to T1/0, or if ultimately I end up going with something else here by rerolling the item and, taking my chances on bricking it. That's a problem for future me, who has money. For gloves, I got these relatively cheap, probably because they're only item level 78, but for level 78 gloves, they have amazing stats. The attack speed's just something that I was playing around with a little bit, trying a leap attack. Realistically, that should be cold res. That's why my cold res is uncapped. Don't pay any mind to that. I'm going to swap it back right after I finish recording this video. But hey, it's crit strike rating that gets transferred to my minions. It's res, it's a little life regen, some strength, it's damage, and it's life. Pretty much everything you want from gloves. Mind Infusion, new pair of these. Good old life regen penalties, a little rough, but totally worth it for the 11% max life, and a bit of move speed. This is very much something else that I want to end up transferring. The problem is my good base, that's +2, is 2 legendary aptitude, and my good suffixes are 3, and they're not high enough level that I can elevate a mod in an attempt to reduce the legendary aptitude. So again, I'm just going to keep corrupting bases as I find them, and hopefully I'll get lucky. Got a couple potentials here. We'll see how that goes. For my other ring, T0 Lightning Res, very, very nice base, I have to say. Then crit damage, and of course, Elemental and Erosion Res. The nice thing about this is it is level 100, so I can gamble on this in the future, where I elevate one of these 2 mods and hope this gets removed. Will it happen? Who knows? Come back next time. If you see me wearing the same ring, then it probably happened. And last but certainly not least, I got a proper weapon. Mostly. Minion skill level or active skill level, these are generally very good. Attributes would be good. I think that should be my other prefix, and long term that's going to be my goal. Then some good old crit damage that's transferred over to my minions, doubly so because with isomorphic arms they are using the weapon. And a chance for minions to deal double damage, which I believe is doubled up because again with isomorphic arms they are using the weapon. This is another thing that long term I should probably gamble on it try elevating one of your other mods, most likely with double damage, try to transfer that over and get rid of a demo charge, then replace it with another crafted mod. Ultimately, is that going to happen? Well, it's more likely that I brick the item, but I can't brick everything, right? I don't know. We'll see later. So last time I was here, my DPS was between 2 and 4 billion. Just to show you very quickly, it's gone up very significantly. Takes just a minute to ramp here, which can be a little bit inconvenient. See those trauma stacks? Yep, that's part of why it's ramping, but then it gets quite respectable. Is this the absolute most DPS possible? No, it can get much, much higher. I suspect this character is going to scale into the trillions with fully optimized gear. But for my it's half made version, I'm pretty darn happy with these numbers. Now, as I continue to play, I'm going to make changes to my gear. So the best way to find the most up-to-date version of the gear is either head over to my Discord or the builder over on Maxwell and then simply search Moto Charge Calling. So in terms of a build, those are the major updates. Now in terms of the content, let's go over a little bit of what I've done. First off, I spent quite a bit of time speed farming 7.2. This was mostly just to test it so that I could give a reliable strategy to people. So first up, I can speed farm 8.1. Either clearing very quickly, pretty much one-shotting everything as soon as I'm on the screen as it, or of course, by going into specific mechanics that might take a little bit longer like God of Machines and always clearing them with 100% success rate. Also, I can absolutely nuke 8.2 Watchers. The fights only take a few seconds, and I can go significantly higher if I'm willing to put up with a boss living for more than a couple seconds. By that I mean I can kill 8.4 Watchers very reliably, so I'm able to push progression pretty much as far as I need to. Full Compass 8.2, it's definitely not as fast as 8.1, but it's doable and relatively safe. 8.3 and 8.4 feel like they're a bit beyond the character's defenses currently. The damage is overall fine, though it's not the fastest. Definitely not a speed farm kind of setup. However, if I wanted to do more juiced content, things like God of Machines, I think I could. The only problem is right now my survivability is a little low, so I'm going to work on that for the future. However, I did easily clear Path of Brave 40. Not quite sure how it would have gone beyond that, as I decided to call it quits after 40. Usually post 40 isn't all that rewarding because of the massive amount of time it takes to kill enemies, at least before your character is fully min-maxed, which again, mine certainly isn't. I have a long way to go and there's a lot more damage and defenses to gain. Also, while my first T8 Traveler kill was a little bit on the slow side, taking a few minutes, my second one was absolutely lightning fast after getting the upgrades outlined in this video. It took a little bit over a minute, and let's be honest, half of that's the roleplay anyway. In the second phase, I was completely annihilating the Traveler and running into no issues at all. I also ended up pushing pretty far into Trial of Divinity. Past wave 20, things definitely started slowing down, but it wasn't horrible, and the damage on the floor was extremely manageable as I was able to kill things to keep my source running very efficiently. And last up, I've been exploring Mistville, and by Mistville, I mean both the 8.2 and 8.4 versions. Honestly, I'm more likely to fail the board game or minigame part of it than I am the combat part. Though I did die a couple times just because I was a little careless, stood in all the poison on the ground. So going forward, my main plan is get more defenses as my damage is fine, then get a little bit more damage so I can start moving into things like 8.3 and 8.4. But to do that, I'm going to need a lot more Flame Elementium, and to get that Flame Elementium, I'm going to need a strategy. So now it's back to testing, time to try a bunch of Time Mark 8 farming strategies and see which ones I like the most. And so if you want to see how my Time Mark 8 farming strategy goes, or what I end up settling on, let me know down below. Then get subscribed so that you can catch a future video. Now if you're looking for something else to watch, I do go over a few more details, like some of the talents, in my first video, Moto Charge Calling Season Start Build. That'll be up in the card and down below, along with my Time Mark 7 Rush farming strategy. That strat isn't supposed to be the most currency per hour, it's just a reliable way to ensure that you have money when you want to be able to farm T8, or just get a character up and running. And of course, before I go, a big thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as low as $1 a month, you can make videos just like this possible. Link to support is of course down below. Last up, a big thanks to everyone who watched to the end. I'm glad you enjoyed the video, and I hope you continue to follow me on my build min-max journey. Not sure if I'll take this one all the way, or if I'll stop after the next step. We'll just have to see after I get there. My plan is to farm a few thousand Flame Elementium, buy some upgrades, and see how meaningful it feels. So with that, I'll be sure to see you in the next video.